from China's dollar alternative system. Takeaways from China's dollar alternative system. Jakir Kibriya. Imagine a world where the US dollar is no longer the undisputed king of global trade, a world where transactions between nations, whether for oil, technology, or infrastructure, are settled not in greenbacks but in currencies that bypass American financial system. This is not a distant fantasy. It is a reality being built today, largely by China. According to The Economist, China is ditching the dollar fast, with over 30% of its trade in goods and services now conducted in its own currency, the renminbi, RMB, up from less than 1% in 2020, up from less than 1% in 2010. Therefore, it has become imperative for countries like Bangladesh that are seeking economic resilience to understand China's construction of a dollar alternative system and form their plans accordingly. China's strategy is not born of mere economic convenience, but of a calculated response to geopolitical risk. The increasing weaponization of the dollar through sanctions and tariffs has exposed the vulnerabilities of relying on a currency controlled by a single nation. As People's Bank of China Governor Pan Zhongshen recently argued, this reliance allows financial risks from one country to overflow to the world, potentially triggering international crisis. China's answer is a multi-pronged campaign to create an alternative financial ecosystem that reduces its exposure to dollar-dominated systems while offering other nations a hedge against American unilateralism. This could represent both an opportunity and a call to action. At the heart of China's strategy is the Cross-Border Interbank Payment System, CIPS, Cross-Border Interbank Payment System, a growing network designed to facilitate RMB denominated transactions without relying on the dollar-centric SWIFT system. Recently, six foreign banks, including Standard Bank and First Abu Dhabi Bank, agreed to integrate with the CIPS, expanding its reach into Africa and the Middle East. This system, coupled with bilateral currency swap agreements with over 32 countries, provides the plumbing for a new financial architecture for a trading nation like Bangladesh, which relies heavily on cross-border transactions. The rise of CIPS could eventually offer cheaper and more efficient alternatives to dollar-based settlements, particularly in dealings with China and other Asian economies. China's ambitions extend beyond traditional banking systems. The digital yuan, ECNY, is poised to revolutionize cross-border payments. With an international operations center recently established in Shanghai, China aims to use its central bank digital currency to enable direct real-time settlements, bypassing Western financial intermediaries. This push is not just about efficiency, it is about sovereignty. As Pan Zhongshen noted, traditional payment systems are vulnerable to geopolitical risk and can be weaponized for unilateral sanctions. For Bangladesh, which is steadily embracing digital finance, the ECNY could become a tool for reducing transaction costs and minimizing exposure to dollar-driven financial volatility. So, trade is another critical battleground. Trade is another critical battleground. China is aggressively pushing for RMB nominated contracts, especially in commodities. From oil deals with Saudi Arabia to mineral agreements with Brazil, Beijing is persuading its partners to settle transactions in yuan. This shift is particularly evident within the BRICS bloc, where the RMB now facilitates 50% of intra-group trade, a stark increase from just 2% of global payment. For Bangladesh, which imports billions worth of energy, raw materials, and machinery from China, denominating even a fraction of this transaction in RMB could reduce exchange rate risks and dependency on dollar reserves. The most compelling aspect of China's strategy is its pragmatic incrementalism. Unlike previous attempts to challenge dollar hegemony, China is not trying to replace the dollar outright. Instead, it is building a parallel system that operates alongside it, focusing on regional dominance rather than global supremacy. This approach acknowledges the dollar's entrenched role it still accounts for 88% of global foreign exchange transactions, while creating alternatives for those seeking to avoid its reach. For Bangladesh, this means that the RMB is not an all or nothing choice, but an additional tool in its monetary toolkit, one that could be deployed selectively to enhance economic resilience. However, China's system is not without challenges. The RMB remains constrained by capital controls and a lack of full convertibility, issues Beijing seems unwilling to address in the near term. Moreover, the dollar's deep and liquid market, backed by the rule of law and institutional stability, make it a trusted store of value, something that the RMB cannot yet match. Therefore, any shift towards RMB based transaction must be cautious and calibrated, ensuring that short-term gains do not expose the economy to long-term risk. As China expands its influence through institutions like the Belt and Road Initiative and BRICS, it is creating a network of nations tied together by shared financial interests. Bangladesh, with its strategic location and growing economic prowess, it is already part of this network. The question is no longer whether to engage with China's dollar alternative system, but how to do so in a way that maximizes benefit while minimizing the risks of the geopolitical reordering of global finance. First, Bangladesh should investigate RMB based trade settlements. First, Bangladesh should investigate RMB based trade settlements with China, particularly for major imports and exports. Particularly for major imports and exports. Pilot programs could test the waters, leveraging mechanisms like currency swap to reduce exchange rate costs. Second, policymakers should study the digital yuan's potential, both as a means of cross-border settlement and as a model for Bangladesh's own digital currency ambitions. Third, Bangladesh must strengthen its financial governance to ensure that any engagement with alternative systems is backed by robust regulatory framework. Finally, Bangladesh should diversify its reserve holding cautiously, considering the RMB as one component of a broader basket of currencies. The world is moving towards a multipolar currency system, and China is leading that charge. By understanding China's dollar alternative system, Bangladesh can make informed choices that enhance its economic sovereignty, protect its interests, secure its place in the new global financial order.